Hello, everyone, and welcome to Girl Time Podcast. I am your host, Lanisha Huggins.
This is episode 20, The New Norm. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and also the bell to receive notifications on all upcoming episodes.
And today I am very, very excited to introduce to you guys Erin Moore. Hello, Erin. Welcome to Girl Time.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Today we will discuss how she is coping with being quarantined, working from home, and her as an adoptive mother. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm not originally from Muncie. I'm not originally from Indiana. I was born and raised in Southern California in the Los Angeles area. My family is all out there. My mom and dad were both born in Southern California. And I went to college in Santa Barbara, which is a couple hours north of LA. Mm-hmm. I also worked up there for a few years and then decided to go back to grad school and looked at Purdue University in University of Colorado in Boulder. And I thought, well, I'm going to Boulder. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in Colorado? And Boulder is beautiful. But everybody on the West Coast thinks that Purdue is like an Ivy League school because the name of it sounds kind of Ivy League. So I thought, well, I'll stop by and get a sweatshirt and maybe meet some of the faculty, and then I'll go find my apartment in Colorado. Well, my visit at Purdue was amazing, and my visit in Colorado was not. And it's probably not a spoiler that I ended up in Indiana. And I thought that I was going to swoop into Indiana, get my degree, maybe go on to get a PhD somewhere, and then return to California. Mm-hmm. And the Lord had other plans for me. So I ended up starting to work with a youth group in Lafayette and really fell in love with the kids. And so when it was time to graduate with my master's, I decided I didn't want to go on and get my PhD. And I also didn't really have a strong desire to return to California, in part because it's really hard to go back. It's expensive. It's huge. Where do you even start? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go back and live with my parents. I had my own apartment out here. So I decided to stay and try to find a job. And I ended up landing in a job that I loved at Purdue. I worked there for 3 years, met my husband from the south side of Indianapolis. And we got married, and his kids from a previous marriage were relocating to Newcastle. And so we knew that we wanted to be close to them, or as close as possible. So moved to Muncie in 2008, got a job at Ball State, and I've worked there since then. I started in what was called the Center for Media Design, and then ended up starting to work for a department called Building Better Communities. The university still has some economic development professionals that go out to cities and towns across Indiana and help those places think about economic development, think about how to improve communities, how to integrate arts and culture. And so I'm a communications person. So I was doing communications for them, writing blogs, keeping up an annual report, monthly emails. And then a part of that department was carved off to focus on Muncie and Delaware County specifically. And it was about that time that I think Muncie also was starting to reach out more consistently to the university and try to figure out how to work together. And so I had the good fortune of going with that group, which is now called the Office of Community Engagement. And so I work there, and our job is to find ways to connect the resources at Ball State to the priorities in Muncie, Delaware County, and East Central Indiana. So I get to know about the best things that are happening in our community, in the community that I live in. And I also get to know the best people, faculty, students, community partners who want to do great things for the community and in the community. And I get to match them. I get to celebrate them, communicate about them. I get to learn about other universities and how they are thinking creatively about how to use their resources for their community. And I absolutely love my job. I'm also a mom. I'm a mom to 2 stepkids. They're with us half time. Laura is 17, David's 16. I married their dad when they were 3 and 5. So we've been a family for quite a while. And then 7 years ago, it's actually almost 8 years ago, we met a birth mom. We had been waiting to adopt for 3 years. And we met a birth mom towards the end of May who decided she wanted us to parent her child. We waited another 3 weeks, and then Kate was born in June of 2012. She's now a 7-year-old in first grade, and just she's an incredible young lady. She is a very unique individual and is just such an incredible, perfect fit for our family. So I'm married to Jim. He is an attorney with the Department of Child Services. So yeah, we're very blessed to be here. We have an amazing family, and I love Muncie.
You know what, I do too, because I feel you when you said that you didn't plan on being in Indiana, but the Lord had different plans, because that's exactly what happened to me. I had planned on after I wanted to graduate from Ball State, I had planned on going down south, but that never happened because Jared is from here, and so we planted seeds here. So
yeah. And there is a vibrancy here that is really, it's kind of addictive, honestly, when you get connected with the networks and the community. And what I love to hear, especially with new faculty who are moving into town and get connected with that, they say, there's something special here. There's something special about the community here. So it's not just me. It's not just because I live here and I have the job that I have this perspective. There are a lot of people who really, really feel the connection, the unique connection, that this unique sense of community and optimism, despite all odds, despite the really significant challenges that we have in Muncie. There's something very special here.
That's true. So how has everything been going since we've been in quarantine? Like, how has everything been going with you?
Well, I'll say that it has been somewhat of a transition. Certainly. I mean, it's been a transition for everybody. I think the biggest transition for us has been certainly having e-learning here at home and trying to figure out how that's going to happen while also my husband and I are working full-time. We both work for places that really understand the challenges that we're facing, and that it's not possible to just continue to do what we did in the office at home. So that has been really helpful as we've tried to navigate this. Another huge help has been my stepdaughter, Laura, who's 17. She's been working with Kate during the day on e-learning stuff. And that has really been a huge weight off of us, instead of maybe Kate just kind of playing all day, and then at the end of the workday, we have to figure out how to make e-learning happen. We've been paying Laura because this is definitely over and above what what a sister potentially would be called on to do, especially because Kate has some learning challenges. It also helps with motivating Laura to maybe go above and beyond as well and incorporate some fun activities that are learning activities rather than just doing the handouts. And but it's taken us a little bit of time to figure out how to make all of that happen. And then certainly working from home, I've got my setup, I've got my computer, and I've got different projects that I'm working on, but it's really hard to get my brain focused for very long. And I've heard a lot of other people talk about that too. Initially, I thought things will slow down enough that I'll be able to work on some of these larger projects that I haven't been able to get to. And I haven't found that to be the case. Things have slowed down a bit, but it takes extra time to stay in communication with your team members. I've been doing a lot of work trying to post things on our Office of Community Engagement Facebook page to help keep people in the loop.
Which I have been seeing that.
Yeah, lots of different departments on campus, groups that are doing cool things to benefit the community. Virtual music series from the School of Music, and the planetarium is doing some virtual shows. And so I want to help get the word out to the community. So that takes extra time. And then it's just really hard to get my brain to think kind of more deeply about some of these larger projects. So that's been a challenge. But we have really loved the slower pace, especially after school. We were entering into a time where even with Laura being able to drive, we weren't sure how we were going to get everybody everywhere they needed to be. And all of that just kind of went away.
That's good.
And especially with teenagers too, that have friends. So not only activities, but friends. And we are spending some really precious time with them that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And certainly Kate and Laura during the day, spending those days together. There's a 10-year difference. Laura will be a senior next year and then going off to college. So this is completely unexpected bonding time for them as sisters. And it's something that they will never forget and we could not have made happen any other way. So that's been a huge blessing to us. So we've been very, I guess I would say, I mean, certainly we are very lucky, but yeah, trying to, I guess, make the most of the situation, but not putting an enormous amount of pressure on ourselves either, because I think it's been a challenge for everybody. It's a different way of doing life for a while.
And that's good. And that's one of the things I noticed about this virus happening. More families are doing things together. They're doing activities, they're taking walks, they're walking a dog and just having fun with each other. And, on the different apps that they use, like TikTok and doing Instagram Live and just stuff like that. Like, it really brought families together. And that's what I love seeing, especially driving the bus all day, and seeing people just taking walks or just sitting outside. And it's great to see that.
And I think because this has been longer than maybe just a couple weeks, people are starting to develop new habits and new rhythms that hopefully will last. I'm really trying to think about, once we ramp up again to our different responsibilities outside of our home, how can we protect some of this too? And, at first it feels both strange and relieving, but it feels temporary. But we've been in it long enough now that this is how we're doing life now. And hopefully that will help us maintain some of that, that priority on family time, the just the relief of not having so many things going on all the time. Certainly for us, that's a huge advantage. And it feels like right now there are people either kind of on, I don't know if I want to say on vacation, but it in some ways it feels a little bit like vacation mode.
Yeah.
We're eating more and different. We're ordering out to support local business.
Yeah.
So we're eating really yummy food. We're making food. We're got kind of a slower pace of life, and if the kids are in PJs all day, it's no big deal.
Yeah, because they're not going outside anyway. So.
But there are other people that like, this is a super stressful, intense time.
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of in between. And so I'm so grateful to have the job that I have that allows me to continue to work, and that my husband is in the same situation. My heart aches for those that are running their own businesses and have had to shut down. We're already kind of struggling to make ends meet or to know what the future held. And certainly for Muncie, there was definitely a momentum happening in Muncie. And Muncie has been through hard times before, and this is another really hard time. But it's hard to see that momentum be challenged, because it just felt really good to a lot of people that we were kind of getting our feet under us and moving forward. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we re-engage community with social distancing and concerns about germs and all of that.
So with your job position that you have at Ball State, and I know that you are community engagement, do you have some plans for how that will look when this is over, or is it still up in the air?
It still is really up in the air. We're keeping an eye on how people are starting to talk about what things look like on the other side, how to re-engage community. I think in many cases, many of our partners are still going to be in somewhat of a crisis mode, even if the pandemic has passed. Then there's the economic crisis on the back of that. Ball State is looking at that. Probably numbers of students will go down, even if we open up completely back in the fall. So Ball State is looking at that, and certainly all of our nonprofit community partners will be looking at that. There will be smaller numbers of people that are able to donate to causes, and in a nonprofit community like this, those donations are really, really important. And so there's going to be a lot of scaling back and simplifying. And sometimes that's a good thing. It's good to examine and to really think about where we're putting our resources. But inevitably with that, it means that some people may not have jobs. We already were kind of scraping by as a community. And certainly our local government is going to be challenged. We didn't have a whole lot of infrastructure dollars before. We certainly won't now. So this is really going to be a testing. But at the same time, I can say that my boss and one of my coworkers is in a regular Zoom meeting with the United Way and nonprofits that United Way has been pulling together. And when my boss first attended, she said, I thought for sure it would be just everybody saying all of the needs that they have and just being overwhelmed with all of the needs. And Delana, my boss, said the opposite was true, that it just seemed like everybody had been pulling together. So the fact that Muncie has been struggling for a bit, and that we've been, back to your point about the women in leadership and just leadership in general particularly among the nonprofits, but among the small businesses as well. There's a camaraderie and a collaboration already established here. And so I don't think it took too long for people to start looking collectively at what resources were needed and how to share and help. And so we may be better positioned than other communities who are just now trying to figure that out. But it's certainly, I'm a part of the Muncie's Bridge Dinner planning team. And in the past, we've had 800-900 people on the Washington Street Bridge. We were planning to hold it the end of April. We pushed it off till May. We've now canceled it until the fall. But, you know, it remains to be seen if people are going to be comfortable getting on a bridge and eating dinner together and what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of creativity is going to come out of this time. We're going to have to get creative.
Yeah. And I would say that is a really fun event because I went last year. And it was nice seeing the Ball State music department was out there playing with instruments and stuff like that. So it was really nice.
Yeah, it's a great event because you can come as you are. You don't have to pay. There's not an ask. We're not raising money for something. You can bring your own dinner if you want, or you can buy from the food trucks. We also have the Muncie Central Jazz Band that plays, and we have some other musicians that play as well, local musicians. And it just brings a really fun cross-section of people from all over the community.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's going to be interesting to see, because I think so many people want to have that feeling, but we may not be able to do it in the same way.
Yeah.
And so, but I think there's a fire in the people that love Muncie. They've been fighting for this community for a while. And so I don't think that things like the Bridge Dinner or other events that are kind of beloved in our community, I don't think people are just going to let them just fade away. I think there's going to be a fight to figure out how to replicate that, but in a way that's safe and responsible. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how it turns out and how people come out and support. I'm really excited about that. Let's talk now about your daughter. And I know that you said that she has special needs. And can you tell us a little bit about, you said a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit more about the adoption process?
Sure. Yeah, she snuck in here earlier.
I know, I saw her.
Yeah. So I texted my husband and my stepdaughter. She's in here.
She's okay.
You need to get her out of here. So we decided to pursue adoption a couple years after we got married. And my husband's adopted, my sister-in-law's adopted, my grandmother was adopted. So adoption has been a part of our family already. And we partnered with Adoption Connections, which was an adoption agency here in town run by Rebecca Bruce. She's an adoption attorney. They now just provide support services, but at that time they were also starting to do matching. And so we wanted to work with a small Christian organization, and we had to complete a home study. So somebody comes in and examines your home, and then you also complete, I don't know, probably 100 questions about your background, about your parenting philosophy, about just kind of what makes you tick, your relationship with your partner. And you submit all of that to become home study ready, home study certified, I guess. And then you kind of wait. A part of that waiting process is creating a profile about your family. So different from when my husband was adopted. Back then, birth moms or birth families didn't really get to choose where their babies went.
Right.
They indicated to an agency that they wanted to move forward with an adoption, and then the agency made the placement. And often the birth families didn't even know what happened to the baby. That was the case in Jim's situation. Nowadays, birth families often choose the families that they want for their child. And so those families that are hoping to adopt create a profile, and it can be lots of different things. The more technology that's out there, the more elaborate these profiles are getting.
Yeah.
We were waiting, you could create like a Shutterfly book or an online video. I created essentially kind of a PowerPoint that I printed out that was the A to Z of our family. So I found a word for every letter of the alphabet that described our family. Because where do you start? Where do you start? And you don't know exactly what's going to connect with a birth mom or birth parents. And you also, it kind of feels weird because you feel like you're kind of selling your family, like we're the best, choose us. So that was an interesting experience to figure out how to present us authentically, but also in a way that was wise to appeal to a potential birth parent. One of the challenges of working with a small agency, while it tends to be cheaper, working with a large agency at the time would cost about $30,000 or more. We weren't in a position to want to do that at that point.
Yeah.
But a lot of that money goes towards marketing. And so when you work with a large agency, they're marketing a lot. And so there are more birth moms or birth parents coming to the agencies. Whereas when you work with a small agency, there may be months where they don't hear from a birth mom. There may be years where they don't hear from a birth mom. And because birth parents get to choose their adoptive families, you could wait for a week as a potential adoptive family. You could be waiting for 10 years. It just depends on two things. One, if you end up being the right fit for an adoptive parent, if your profile is what they desire for their baby. And then also the kind of elements or demographics as an adoptive family that we're willing to take on. So if we had special requirements in terms of race, gender, medical history, background, those types of things, then we'd have to wait longer, essentially, because there are fewer babies that would fit that mold.
Right.
And so during that waiting process, especially up front, we really had to think through what are things that we absolutely know for certain that we want to look for, and what are the things that are negotiable. And most things were negotiable for us. We didn't really care if it was a boy or a girl or race or any of that. The thing that we knew we could not take on is a known disability. So if there was a baby that was known to have severe Down syndrome or severe other physical or mental disabilities, I think that's a calling. I think taking on a child knowingly, and certainly there are lots of unknowns, whether you get pregnant yourself or you're adopting. We were totally okay with that. But it's a calling to seek out those kids with special needs. And the people that do and parent them are special angels on earth.
Yeah.
Because those children deserve loving families just like any other child. But because we had two other kids in the mix, and they were already in somewhat of a challenging situation of going between two homes. At the time, they were like 5 and 7 when we started waiting. We just felt like we weren't called to that, and that would be introducing a lot in their world as well. And so we, again, just kind of waited. And I went through a time where I was registering for things on Amazon because once you start thinking about having a baby, you realize, like, I don't know anything about strollers. I don't know anything about car seats. And it's almost like buying a car. It's just very complicated and totally overwhelming. And diapers and bottles. And it's become such a big business that there are 1,800 different types of everything. And it all costs money. And it's really hard to figure out. So I went through periods of like doing that kind of research. And then I went through periods where that felt really hard to do because it was opening up a door of hope. And after a time, there was a part of me that it was just too painful to kind of continue to walk through that door of hope, especially as different times of the year would pass by. So I couldn't help but think, we've got this family vacation coming this summer. What if we have a baby by that time? What will that look like? Or what about this Christmas? And then when those would come and go, it would feel sad again that we were waiting. And then there were times where I wanted to be in that hopeful space and prepare. So we ended up waiting for 3 years. After 2 years, we decided to add an additional agency. There was a small agency in Anderson called the Miriam Project. And so we worked with them as well. And we actually were matched through them. We were contacted. This was the first birth mom that we had met. So our profile had been considered in the past. But this was the first birth mom that we met in person. We talked with her, and she was, I want to say she was 23 or 24 at the time. She had 2 other young children, and they were living with their dads at that time. And she decided to pursue adoption with this child. And her due date was 2 weeks after we met with her. So, and her other children had come early. So it felt like this could happen anytime. We met with her, and later on that evening, we got a call from the agency that she had chosen us. And I called my parents. It was my dad's birthday, actually. Called my parents, and my mom said, we knew that it was a girl. My mom said, I'm running out to buy something pink right now. And my dad said, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic until all the paperwork is signed.
Yeah. See, that's how I would be.
Because anything can happen.
Yeah.
And those were the longest 3 weeks of my life waiting for that baby to be born. And birth parents cannot sign any paperwork until 24 hours after the baby is born. So even after the baby is born, you're still waiting, and any decision could be made in that time. We knew that from the profile of the birth mom, we had some background information. We didn't know anything about dad, but we did know that mom had smoked during pregnancy and had some other some mental health issues and those types of things. But I don't know, I feel like most of us have some sort of mental health issues. So we can handle that for sure. And it's true to Kate that she came on her own time. So her birth mom had to be induced, whereas the two other children came early. Kate hung on for as long as she possibly could. And her birth mom wanted us to care for her in the hospital. So we were not there for her birth, but we got there about 3 hours after she was born and cared for her. So we had a hospital room. She slept in our room. There were a few occasions when she was wheeled out into like a common nursery area. Birth mom's family wanted to come and meet her. And so we did not meet them at that point. But anyway, it was a really beautiful time, of course. And I've said that it's way easier to care for a newborn when you've not been pregnant for 10 months and not sleeping well for the last 3 months and all of that. Like, I was fresh as a daisy to take care of this baby. And adoptive parents often call the waiting time a paper pregnancy. So it's a different discomfort. It's a different pain. It's a different uncertainty. It's different. I've never been pregnant, so I can't weigh which one is harder or easier. But it is different because you really relinquish control, which honestly, we're not in control of much in our lives anyway. The Lord is in control, but you feel it really palpably during that waiting process.
So did you guys have an open adoption?
It's semi-open. So we agreed to written updates every month. So a written update and some photos each month sent to birth mom through the agency, and a visit every 6 months. So we picked a kind of a common area. We actually went to a church, a nursery at a church, not ours, but where Kate could just play and kind of hang out. And because of that as well, we had some background information, like I said, on her medical history. So that's helpful. And Kate was born here in Muncie, so it was a local person. And so that made the connection easier. Quite honestly, I didn't know how I felt about open adoption. My husband's adoption was completely closed. And so that was his experience. And so he was not sure how he would feel about open adoption. And I kind of just wanted God to drop a baby on my front doorstep. That's really was my dream scenario. But I've come to really value the fact that Kate, if she has questions growing up about her genetic family, she can have those answered. And to honor, it is a way for us to honor the incredible bravery, courage, sacrifice of birth mom. And hopefully give her some peace too about how Kate is being raised. So that has been really precious. And since over the past few years, we've gotten to know birth mom's mom and some of her extended family, and that's been an enormous blessing for everybody involved.
That's good.
So it's become more open over time. After Kate turned 2, we no longer provided monthly updates, but created at that time, a Shutterfly site. We now have Google Photos that I put photos into a special album that her birth family has access to, so that they can continue to see her.
That's sweet.
And then we do visits once a year. Birth mom initiates those. And then with birth mom's mom, she has actually, we've gotten to know her really well, and she has spent some time, her family has spent some time with Kate more one-on-one as well, which has just been beautiful. So we were invited to the birth family's family Christmas this last year. So got to meet extended family members. Birth mom was not there, but we got to meet the rest of the family. And so that's been really amazing. but that's just kind of grown up over time.
That's good. So during this whole process and having to wait for as long as you had to wait, what is something that you learned about yourself?
That I'm really bad at waiting. I'm really bad. I whine and complain a lot. Yeah, it wasn't always pretty. I did learn, kind of mentioned it earlier, it was surprising to me. There was a point at which I couldn't pray about our situation anymore because praying put me back into it. And hope can be very dangerous. I mean, it's what we absolutely have to have it. I mean, at our core, we need hope. But when we seek it out and we purposefully kind of speak things into existence or speak things into happening, and the Lord has other timing, it can also be really devastating. And so during that time, I got real candid with God. And I think that's exactly where he wanted me to be, because he knows what I'm thinking and feeling anyway. So I kind of practiced that. I also realized or really came to experience the truth that not a moment is wasted. So sometimes it felt like, God, a year ago when we started this process was the perfect time for us to have a baby join our family. The age gap would be just great. And we were ready. I was ready. And God said, no, you weren't ready. I needed to walk you through 3 years, not only because he was preparing Kate. Kate was not even a thought, or at that point. So he weaves these amazingly beautiful tapestries, and he was doing that. But in that time, he wasn't saying to me, just sit and wait, and I'm going to go off and do other things during this time, and then I'll come back when I'm ready for you. No, he was working in my life that whole time, showing me the places where I did not have faith, showing me how much I wanted to be in control and do things to move things forward, and how frustrating it was to, especially when you're at the point where there's nothing more you can do other than just wait. He also has shown me the beauty of those types of times. Certainly there's a redemption. And one of those redeeming elements is the way that it allows me to connect with other people, specifically other women, but other people who walk through similar situations. I feel the same way about when I was in grad school. I experienced depression, and it was really scary. And I never want to go back to that darkness. I've been close. But I also would not replace that time, because it's helped to give me a connection point with so many other people in our common frailty and our common humanity. And it has just been really beautiful. And the fact that there is strength in that humility, and there's strength in that brokenness, and there's strength in that struggle. And I needed to walk through that. So I also really discovered what do I want to say? The things that happen in our lives just have so many amazing ripple effects. So this one thing that I was waiting on had so many other ripple effects for so many other people. And Kate's timing was not only perfect for me and perfect for my, immediate family, but also for other family members and other people that she's interacted with.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just this amazing tapestry that is being woven among all of these different lives. And I'm so thankful that I've had a glimpse of that in this process.
That's good. That's good. I love that answer. That's beautiful. So, with you and your husband and building your relationship and making it stronger, how did you guys manage to keep that going during the 3 years when you had to wait? And I know that you guys were ready for a baby, but how did you manage to keep building and making it stronger?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we already really knew that we process things differently. We're definitely a situation of opposites attracting.
Mm.
And we continue to struggle with that and work on that and have to overcome hurdles with that. That's another thing, not just the waiting, but being married. I've learned so much about myself in contrast to this other person. I thought I was a really even keel person, not terribly emotional. Apparently I'm a total basket case because I'm like constantly having some sort of emotion that my husband, bless his heart, is like, I don't get it. It's real. I understand. I totally validate that you are having that emotion, but I don't understand.
I don't know. Yes.
And I can't explain it either. I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know what I want you to do. So I think we had some training just in some of our early years of being married too, of being very clear with one another that I don't get it. I don't get you. I don't understand where you're coming from, but I need to accept that as valid.
Yes.
And it was a struggle at times because I was the one really driving the adoption process. So Jim was happy that we were pursuing that, but he also had shared with me that, he had 2 kids, he had raised babies, he had been through that experience. So really a lot of it was dependent on me and what I felt like I needed, which is hard sometimes, especially when you're making decisions about how much money do we pay to adopt a baby.
Yeah.
And can I wait? Can I hold on? Do we make changes to this arrangement? So we definitely had discussions. I wanted him to be giddy, new daddy. But that's not him.
Yeah.
But I wanted him to be that. But then I don't want him to be giddy and emotional when I'm emotional. I need him to be the solid rock. And so just recognizing that the things that I rely on about him, there are pros and cons to all of it, just the same way that there are pros and cons to my strengths. They talk about your greatest strengths can also be your greatest weakness.
Yes.
So there were a lot of discussions about, are we doing the right thing with staying with this one agency, or are we should we be doing something different? Jim trying to keep up with whether I was okay to talk about a potential baby at this day and time, or is this a day and time where I've decided I can't do that anymore? So a lot of it was just open communication and recognizing that we were not going to completely understand each other, but that we needed to take each other's approach as valid. And that continues to be a journey that we're walking through. We're walking through that right now. And how do we make sure to find places of connection in the midst of our differences, and that will probably be a lifelong journey. But I think the challenges of waiting and other challenges that we faced in our marriage just makes that much stronger.
Kate is 7, and did she have any questions about being quarantined and how COVID-19 is affecting everything that's happening around you guys?
She doesn't. She is, I will say that she surprises us every day.
Mm-hmm.
And more times during the day than not, I wish I could just climb inside her brain to understand what is happening. She is, and other people have said this too, she's unlike any other 7-year-old. And all 7-year-olds, all children are special.
Mm-hmm. But
there's something else with Kate that just the connections or the lack of connections, the creativity, there's just a different way of processing, which has been challenging and is a part of the special needs that you mentioned earlier, that we're still trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and we may never know, but how do we accommodate that? So she's kind of ahead in certain things, but then behind developmentally in others, in really unique ways. And we've worked with specialists, and they've all said, like, she is wired very uniquely. And so for this time, she loves being home. She loves being home. She has not, partially because I think of her some of her social development delays. She doesn't have a lot of really strong connections to friends. She feels very, very strongly connected to her family. So right now she gets to be with us all the time. And that's exactly what she wants in her world. And I think she does enjoy seeing her classmates on Zoom when they get on, but she is not pining after them, which is really helpful. She's also not a terribly high energy kid. She has attention deficit, and so she moves from one thing to the next a lot, and has a hard time playing by herself for a length of time, unless she gets sucked into something. And again, what the things are that she gets sucked into, it doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason. So we just cross our fingers that she might get sucked into something this afternoon, because I have some things to get done. We don't know. But so she moves around a lot from one thing to the next, but she is not the kind of kid that needs to be out running around a lot, or just, kind of going stir crazy. And so in that way, she's a very easy kid to have in these conditions. We're dealing with some insomnia, so that's not great. So some of those things are challenges, but I don't think it has anything to do with COVID. I think it just has to do with Kate being Kate. And I'd say my older kids too. I mean, I know that there have been some disappointments with not being able to see friends. I'm really thankful for them for social media, because they're able to stay connected pretty much identically to the way that they were connected before, other than not seeing each other at school. And both of them, neither of them were seniors this year. So there's not a whole lot of frustration that they've missed out on the last of anything. And so, like I said, we're incredibly thankful. I have some friends that have, like 3 boys, and, all under the age of 6. And trying to manage that on a day-to-day basis, I can't imagine, with playgrounds being closed, and
trying to find things to do. Yes.
So, and honestly, I had to stop, early on when they were moving to e-learning, there were all of these posts on Facebook and other emails coming out, resources that you could access to work with your kids at home. And it became totally overwhelming. And it's been really great to have teachers, especially Kate's in the dual language program at Westview, and have their teachers say, just do what you can do. Have fun with it. Don't get stressed. Your kids will catch up. We're all dealing with the same thing, so they're not behind.
Right.
But what they will remember, what they will grow from, is family time, is some more downtime, playing games, exploring, those things that you may not have as much time for when everybody's going a million different directions. And so that's been very helpful. And before this, we have an IEP for Kate at school. And so that allows us to kind of proceed at her pace and just kind of do what we can do. And so we've taken that to heart with e-learning as well. And just, it looks unconventional the way that we accomplish the learning, but we just do what we can do to move her forward. So it's, like I said, we've been very blessed.
That's good. I love that so much. And I'm glad to hear that everything is going really, really good. It's a blessing to just hear, because I haven't really been talking to many people, but I haven't heard the struggles that is happening right now, besides the people that get on the bus and just be talking. But I haven't known anybody like personally close to me that has some issues with being quarantined and not being able to work, or their kids is having struggles in the areas of e-learning. So it's really good to hear.
Yes, it is.
Well, that is all the questions that I have today. And I thank you so much, Erin, for joining me and taking the time out to even talk with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I love having the opportunity to share our story.
Yeah.